Hello, you're watching the news from Kazakhstan. I'm Askar Sheraliyev, and these are the latest updates. A group of nationalist-minded citizens has disrupted a press conference of the political bloc Narodovlastия. The amount of fines from fiscal bodies to undesirable for the state media outlets totals to $680,000. On Friday, during a briefing in the National Press Club, a group of nationalist-minded citizens insulted and egged the leader of the unregistered party Alga Vladimir Kozlov, as well as the former and current chairman of the Kazakh Communist Party Sirik Balsyn Abdildin and Gazi Saldamzharov. Interestingly, the key instigator of the incident, the head of the movement, Zheltoksan Karındары, Gulbahram Junis, was escorted from the site by the police in a Lexus without any questioning. The best arguments against the alternative to Nazarbayev, eggs and nationalistic slogans. Former activists of Zheltoksan, who turned into members of the nationalistic movement of the same name, attended the Wednesday's press conference of the political bloc Narodovlastия, the democracy. Vladimir Kozlov, the leader of the unregistered party Alga, planned to use this opportunity to officially announce his candidacy for the upcoming presidential elections. National patriots, though, believe Kozlov's ethnicity could be a problem. You live on your land, and that's fine, but don't you stomp on our pride. The initial displeasure of Gulbahram Junis and her supporters with the language used at the conference later turned into dissatisfaction with its tone. Axe's arguments were followed by plastic bottles and even chairs, although the owners of the press club managed to take them away in a nick of time. The patriots didn't even care about potentially damaging reporters, as well as the 70-year-old patriarch of Kazakh politics, Sirik Balsyn Abdildin, who was seated next to Kozlov. The founder of the National Press Club, Seyyid Gazi Mataev, came to the speaker's defense. By doing this, they offend the constitution. This is not simply hooliganism, it is the enticing of national hatred as its worst. The passion didn't die down even when everyone was asked to leave. My name is Talgat Raskulbekov, which means that my father was Raskulbek. He is Kozlov, Russian for he-goat, so that's what his father was. The police had to be summoned at the scene to bring some order, although officers decided not to intervene much. That is when reporter Sharifjan Kurakbay joined the dispute with Gulbahram Junis. The arguments were met with flying rocks. For some reason, the police apprehended the reporter first. Gulbahram Junis was also escorted by the police, although this time to a nearby Lexus, so at least she managed to leave the battlefield in comfort. The former chairman of the Communist Party, Sirik Balsyn Abdildin, who was present at the press conference, as well as the head of the public union, Jasa Zatyk, Jasaral Kuanyshalin, have sharply criticized the egging incident. Abdildin believes it is the authorities and the law enforcement who are trying to play the nationalist card. Kuanyshalin also feels the real representatives of the movement, Zheltoksan, would have never acted this barbarically. The conduct of these individuals shows that they are ill-mannered hooligans. There's no other way to describe them. I think that it was a clear provocation to create a specific situation during this particular press conference. I don't know these people. I think they just use Zheltoksan's name in their unbecoming interests. If they really represented Zheltoksan, they would have surely supported Kozlov in his campaign trail, as he used his constitutional right and made a great political move by challenging the anti-national authorities led by dishonorable President Nazarbayev. A protest action against the regime of President Nazarbayev was held on Wednesday in Brussels. Several dozen activists of the Belgian Socialist Party, trade union members and representatives of the Committee for a Workers' International led by the MEP Joe Higgins picketed the building of the European Commission. The protest was specifically scheduled to coincide with the Belgian visit of the Kazakh president. When motorcade of the Kazakh president left the Queen's Palace, the protesters began to chant, "No dictatorship in 21st century." The picketers said that their call to boycott the OSCE summit in Astana is the only true call to revise the attitude towards the Kazakh regime that violates the rights of citizens, public movements and opposition in favor of transnational corporations. Many left-wing MEPs have already expressed their support to the protesters and will initiate public hearings over the human rights in Kazakhstan with their governments and political parties. A number of protest actions against the current regime in Kazakhstan were held recently in several cities of the world. In Moscow, the picket was held across the Kazakh embassy.
Members of the Committee for the Workers' International called for representatives of the OSCE member states to stop cooperating with Nazarbayev's regime and boycott the upcoming December summit in Astana.
The goal of today's action is to express dissatisfaction with the policies of Kazakh authorities as well as the growing repressions on the eve of the OSCE summit. The action in Moscow is a part of an entire campaign which will be held in the European countries and the OSCE member states.
With the approaching summit of the OSCE, Kazakh authorities are intensifying their efforts in terminating the operation of anti-government mass media. Early this week, the newspapers Vzglyad Azad, Alga, Golos Respubliki and Moya Respublika were visited by tax agents who issued them a fine in excess of $680,000. On Wednesday, editors of the independent media called a press conference to address the situation.
Kazakh tax inspectors assume their new role, that of the censorship body. Publications' editors believe that the intention of tax authorities is nothing more than an attempt to suppress the unwanted media before the OSCE summit. Of course, audits are nothing new, but in the past they were held according to the law and without potential killer fines, said editors present at Wednesday press conference in Almaty. The first wave of checks coincided with the instigation of criminal case against the infamous printing house Kometa S. All 5 newspapers under scrutiny had cooperated with Kometa S at one time or the other. We believe that in this case there should be not a comprehensive but a counter-inspection, hence our lawsuit. In principle, the tax inspectors agree with this position. Until recently, a completely legal process was already underway, but the audit had to be suspended. In the beginning of the week, though, without waiting for the court decisions, inspectors resumed audits almost at the same time and even immediately produced ready-made acts of checks. Each of them had assessed additional taxes amounting to more than 2,000 monthly calculated indexes. The inspectors added absolutely outrageous amounts. I tried to talk to them and find out the reason, but all in vain. Igor Vinyavsky, the chief editor of the newspaper Vzglyad, The View, says the tax inspector likely calculated all profits but didn't deduct printing expenses and wages. None of the owners had their documents and book checks, so the fines came out of nowhere. Employees of the outlet note that since independent media constantly feel the pressure of the authorities, their financial affairs are always kept in perfect state and taxes are paid on time. We are always trying to follow the law because we know from our experience that usually we feel more pressure than other newspapers. It is worth noting that already for a half a year the video portal Stan.kz is also undergoing a financial audit, although the staff of the company is asked questions completely unrelated to the financial documentation. Editors believe that these developments are an attempt of the authorities to strike first, fearing criticism during the most awaited image-making event in the OSCE summit.
The increasing number of instances of pressuring journalists is reported in the Karaganda region as well. Last week, a local prison warden almost destroyed cameras of reporting crews from Channel 7 and KTK. In another recent episode, a correspondent of the newspaper Respublika was beaten by a security officer of the city administration. Journalists see the reason for the increased harassment in the arrival of the new leadership of the region.
The discrimination in provision of information is one of the key rules for the team of the Karaganda governor Sirik Akhmetov. The staff reporter of the newspaper Moya Respublika, My Republic, Larisa Chen, says that she lately encounters this approach quite often. Governor Akhmetov heads the region for a year and Chen was never invited to any of the official events. During the rule of this governor, the press indeed was paid more attention, although it is the way of making mass media report only information favorable for the officials. This is a recent incident when the police detained the TV crews of the Channel 7 and KTK near the gates of the Karaganda isolation ward for their attempt to take footage of the facility. Reporters had to spend more than an hour in the police station. Journalists say that this situation would have never happened during the last governor's watch. Previously, we could understand the position of the governor, whereas now it is simply impossible. The press secretary took the role of the firewall between the press and the head of the region. Tatiana Golubtsova, a professor of the Karaganda University and mass media expert, believes that ideally the work of the authorities and journalists should be cooperative in nature, while the more the state isolates itself from the press, the more rumors and distrust is born. More importantly, though, The state officials have to share the information with journalists according to the law on mass media. Journalists can defend their rights in court and demand the dismissal of state officials, especially if said officials work within the press services, which have direct relation to the mass media. The refusal to provide information is a constant problem of independent mass media, especially in the Karaganda region. Journalist Larisa Chen is planning to file a lawsuit, as it seems that this is the only way to make the officials talk.
The former board chair of the Alliance Bank, Margulan Sisimbayev, returned to Kazakhstan while assuring his complete loyalty to the president and expressing his belief in fair trial. Interfax reports that Sisimbayev intends to cooperate with the investigation on the criminal case over the embezzlement of bank's assets. The news agency published the banker's letter, which says that despite the wishes of various forces to use the criminal case for their political purposes, Sisimbayev kept his loyalty to the president and always believed the justice will be restored.
I return to take part in the ongoing investigation of the criminal case and prove there are no elements of crime in the actions of the Alliance Bank management and shareholders. I believe my future lies in Kazakhstan and hope to continue doing business for the benefit of the country. A year ago, shareholders of the Alliance Bank Margulan and Erlan Sisimbayev were charged in absentia of embezzling the bank's assets in the amount of $100 million. Later, the accused were placed on the international wanted list.
Also on Wednesday, the Almaty Prosecution Office reported about the recommencing of the proceedings on the criminal case against Margulan Sisimbayev. In the meantime, the official statement said that the investigation on the general case against Sisimbayev, Yertayev, Mamurbekov and others completely proved the previously forwarded charges. To the other news, new details on the case of Kazakh Gold emerged on Wednesday. Russian company Polus Gold decided against the merger with the Kazakh enterprise after failing to settle a conflict with the Kazakh authorities that resulted from the lawsuit of Polus Gold against Kazakh Gold's former owners.
The leadership of Polus Gold planned to complete the talks with Kazakh authorities before the end of October. The deadline has been extended twice already, but the negotiations produced no results so far. The reverse takeover has been cancelled. In current conditions, it is simply wrong to keep the minority interest holders and further delay their reverse takeover. This is why Polus Gold decided against it. The reaction of Kazakh authorities was swift. The Industry Ministry and the Anti-Monopoly Agency banned Kazakh Gold's follow-on offering, with the financial police instigating criminal cases against Russian top managers, supposedly for faking the numbers. Independent experts said immediately that the prosecution of the company has political roots. This means that in one way or another the government is interested in seeing this trial end or continue the producing some funds. At the same time, the Russian Polus still sees a possibility of a reverse takeover and continues to look for ways for a peaceful settlement with Kazakh authorities. Experts, however, believe that the Russian-Kazakh union has no future. While Polus will continue to seek the return of its money through the London court, Kazakh Gold will find itself a new owner. Gold assets are in demand right now, and the buyer could be found in China. One of the future options is for Kazakhstan to exercise its right to remove and resell this asset. The talks with Sisimbayevs continue. The Russian company is now ready to abandon the troubled Kazakh Gold even at the price of the initial deal of $269 million, especially since the Kazakh party finished the last year with a net loss of nearly $144 million. In any case, the biggest loss will be recorded by the government of Kazakhstan, which has seriously stained its business reputation in the eyes of the entire world community.